Look closely at this image. This isn't just a transaction. It is the funeral of a dream. Jenny Slatten, who gave up America, her family, and her safety, is now giving up her last line of defense. We are witnessing the moment the American dollars ran dry. Focus on her hands. You can almost feel the tremor as she struggles to remove the engagement ring, the symbol of a promise that has now become a currency for survival. And then, look at him. Look at Sumit standing in the background. Is he looking at his phone? Is he studying the floor tiles? What he is definitely not doing is stopping her. He is the guilty beneficiary of a sacrifice that should never have been made. This is the visual definition of financial ruin, captured in a single, slow-motion frame of tragedy. But before we rip open the financial records and expose the dark reality Sumit doesn't want his parents or you to know, I need you to make a move. If you believe Jenny deserves better than pawning her life away, and if you want us to keep digging up the truths that TLC tries to bury, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications because what we are about to reveal changes everything. Do it now because the story only gets darker from here. We need to talk about the Parasite theory. For years, viewers have debated whether Sumit was fighting for love or fighting for a visa. But insider reports and a closer look at the timeline suggest we were all asking the wrong question. He wasn't waiting for a green card. He was waiting for the pension. The theory is simple but devastating. Sumit lured Jenny to India not to build a life, but to fund a lifestyle. But there was a flaw in his calculation. He didn't account for global inflation, and he certainly didn't account for the reality that TLC checks are not a lifetime salary. The royal love story has hit the pavement, and the pavement is hard. Let's perform a financial autopsy on this relationship because the math simply does not add up anymore. We have to look at the economic trap Jenny walked into. When Jenny first moved to India, the exchange rate was favorable. Her social security check, which barely scrapes by in Palm Springs, allowed her to live like upper-middle-class royalty in India. They had the spacious apartment, the constant outings, the ability to do nothing but exist in a bubble of romance. But insiders suggest that the financial landscape in India has shifted drastically in the last 24 months. The cost of living has skyrocketed. Electricity, fuel, and basic groceries have seen unprecedented spikes. Now, take that fixed income, a number that does not grow, and place it against an economy that is becoming more expensive by the day. We are hearing whispers that they have been forced to downsize quietly. The luxury apartment days are over. We are looking at a scenario where they are moving from comfort to survival mode, potentially ending up in a place where running the air conditioning is a luxury they have to budget for. The glossy sheen of reality TV hides the grit, but if you look at the background of their recent social media posts, the walls look different. The furniture looks older. The space looks tighter. This leads us to the food business scam. Do you remember the enthusiasm? Do you remember the episodes where Sumit stood tall and promised to open a food shop? He sold this dream to Jenny, and he sold it to the audience. He was going to be an entrepreneur. He was going to contribute. He was going to take the burden off Jenny's shoulders. But let's look at the cold, hard facts. Did he ever buy a single piece of commercial kitchen equipment? Did he ever sign a lease for a storefront? Did he ever even print a menu? There is a growing suspicion among investigators that the food business was never real. It was a narrative device, a front designed to extract a lump sum of cash from Jenny's savings under the guise of investment. Where did that seed money go? If you analyze their lifestyle in the months following that announcement, you see new clothes, you see trips, you see lifestyle upgrades. The theory is sickeningly plausible. The business capital was eaten. It was spent on maintaining the illusion of wealth rather than generating it. The restaurant was a ghost, but the money Jenny poured into it was very real, and now it is gone. This brings us to the core of the problem, the rot at the center of the apple. Sumit's career of lies. We cannot forget that this entire relationship, this decade-long saga, began with a lie. He was Michael Jones. He sat in a call center, used a fake name, used a fake photo, and manipulated a woman halfway across the world. If a man is capable of faking his entire identity to hook a partner, why is it so hard to believe he would fake his financial intentions? The psychological profile here is alarming. We are looking at a man who is comfortable with deception if it yields a reward. Michael Jones didn't die. He just changed his name back to Sumit. And now, look at the job hunt charade. It has been years. Years of excuses. First, it was his parents. He couldn't work because his parents would find him. Then it was the marriage paperwork. Then it was the need to protect Jenny and be with her 24/7. These are not reasons. These are stalls. A man in his 30s, able-bodied and capable, who refuses to work while his retired wife depletes her life savings, is not a partner. He is a dependent. But unlike a child, he is a dependent who has made a conscious choice to be carried. Psychologists might call this learned helplessness, a state where someone feels unable to control the outcome of their life, so they stop trying. But that gives him too much credit. That implies he is a victim of his own mind. The darker interpretation, the one that keeps Jenny's family up at night, is that this is calculated manipulation. By refusing to work, by refusing to have his own income, he ensures that he is never independent. But conversely, he ensures that Jenny is always drained. It is a tether. If he works, he has money. If he has money, the dynamic changes. By staying broke, he forces Jenny into the role of the provider, a role she is too afraid to abandon because she has already sunk 10 years into this investment. We have to talk about the evidence that is right in front of our faces, the evidence that Sumit holds in his hand. In a recent photo that surfaced, Sumit is seen holding a smartphone. But it's not just any phone. If you zoom in, the camera array, the size, the finish, it appears to be a brand new Pro model iPhone. Do the math. In India, due to import taxes, Apple products are significantly more expensive than in the US. That phone represents 3, maybe 4 months of rent in a modest area. That phone costs more than the average monthly salary of a corporate worker in his city. Who paid for it? Look at Jenny in that same time frame. Look at her clothes. She is wearing the same tops we saw 3 seasons ago. Her hair isn't done professionally. There is a weariness in her posture. Yet, he is swiping a screen that costs a fortune with the same thumb that refuses to fill out a job application. The contrast is nauseating. It paints a picture of a queen who is selling her crown jewels so the court jester can have the latest toy. He is connected to the world in high definition, while her world is shrinking into standard definition poverty. This brings us back to that jewelry store. That moment was not just a scene, it was a confession. When a woman walks into a pawn shop or a jeweler to sell her engagement ring, it is usually the last resort. It means the savings account is at 0. It means the credit cards are maxed out. It means there is literally no cash for the next meal. And the negotiation, it's heartbreaking. We have reports that Jenny went in there hoping for a specific amount, maybe $500, maybe more, to cover a specific debt or bill. But in these local shops, they smell desperation. They know when you need the money, and they lowball you. Sources speculate that she walked away with a fraction of the ring's value, barely enough to buy groceries for a week or pay a fraction of an overdue utility bill. And where was Sumit? His silence in that jewelry store is louder than any scream. A husband who values his wife's dignity would be out on the street selling his watch, selling his motorcycle, or scrubbing floors before he let her sell the symbol of their marriage. But he stood there. He watched. He let it happen. His silence is his acceptance of a new reality. Jenny is the cash cow, and even though the cow is dry, he will keep milking until the bones turn to dust. We have to ask ourselves, what happens when the jewelry is gone? This isn't a scripted drama anymore. This is a survival documentary. The fridge is empty. The American snacks, the comforts of home, the little luxuries that made the transition to India bearable, they are gone. We are seeing a dietary shift that is terrifying. Gone are the restaurant dates. Gone are the varied meals. Reports suggest they are subsisting on the basics: rice, lentils, the cheapest possible calories. And you can see it on her. Jenny looks frail. The glow that she had when she first arrived, the glow of defiance and love, has been replaced by the gaunt look of stress and malnutrition. Is this the face of a woman who is skipping meals so her husband can have data on his Pro model iPhone? The physical toll is becoming impossible to hide. And the terrifying question looms. What happens if she gets sick? At her age, healthcare is not optional. It is critical. Do they have insurance? It is highly unlikely. If a medical emergency strikes, they don't have a safety net. They don't have a nest egg. They have a solid ring and a husband who refuses to work. Selling that jewelry wasn't for a vacation. It was likely an attempt to build a tiny, pathetic emergency fund because Sumit failed to provide one. We have to turn our eyes now to the people who warned us. We have to look at the family dynamic that has been the battlefield of this entire relationship. And this brings us to a realization that is a bitter pill to swallow for anyone who has rooted for Jenny. We have to talk about Sadhna, Sumit's mother, the villain of the franchise, the woman who threatened suicide to stop this marriage. We hated her for her cruelty. We hated her for her rigid traditionalism. But here is the twisted irony that is starting to emerge from the wreckage of Jenny's bank account. Sadhna was right. She was right for all the wrong reasons, perhaps, but the core of her argument has been validated by the emptiness of Jenny's refrigerator. Sadhna screamed that Sumit was useless. She screamed that he could not manage a household, that he was a child playing at being a man. She knew her son better than we did. She knew that without the structure of his parents' home and their financial oversight, he would flounder. She knew he wasn't looking for a wife. He was looking for a second mother to take over the burden of his existence. Imagine the shame that is currently festering in that house. In Indian culture, the pressure on the son to provide, to be the pillar of stability, is immense. Sumit knows this, and this explains the silence. This explains why he hides the poverty from his parents. We have theories suggesting that Sumit is terrified of the "I told you so." If Sadhna finds out that they are selling jewelry to eat, if she finds out that the rich American wife is actually scraping the bottom of the barrel, the humiliation would be total. He isn't just protecting Jenny's feelings. He is protecting his own ego. He is hiding the evidence of his failure because admitting it means admitting that his mother saw the future more clearly than he did. He is living a double life, pretending to be the successful, independent husband to his parents, while playing the role of the broke dependent at home. And then, we have to look across the ocean. We have to look at the victims of this tragedy who aren't even on the screen. Jenny's daughters. Picture the scene. It's late at night in India. The power might be out because they are saving on electricity. Jenny sits on the edge of a bed that feels less and less like hers, and she dials the phone. She calls America. She calls her girls. And then, the performance begins. Everything is fine, she says. Sumit is doing great. The business plans are coming along. India is beautiful. She lies. She has to lie. How can a mother, who left everything behind against her children's advice, call home and admit she is starving? How can she admit that the man she defended to them for a decade is now bleeding her dry? The tragedy of the expatriate parent is the inability to ask for help without admitting total defeat. We suspect that Jenny is trapped in a prison of pride. Her daughters have their own lives, their own struggles. Jenny knows that if she asks for money, if she asks for a plane ticket, she is confirming their worst fears. She is confirming that she was scammed. So she suffers in silence. She sells the ring instead of making the call. She eats rice instead of asking for a wire transfer. It is a heartbreaking standoff where her dignity is the only thing she has left, and she is starving herself to keep it intact. But is there a darker layer to this? Some insider whispers suggest that there might not even be a home to go back to. Did she burn the bridges? When she sold her furniture, her car, and gave up her apartment in Palm Springs, she didn't just move. She erased her footprint. If she goes back to America, she goes back to nothing. No credit score, no assets, sleeping on a daughter's couch at retirement age. That fear, the fear of being a burden on her children, is likely what keeps her tethered to Sumit. In her mind, struggling in India with a man she loves is better than being a destitute grandmother in America. Sumit knows this. He banks on this. He knows she has nowhere to run, which gives him zero incentive to step up. This leads us directly into the psychological toll. We are witnessing the breaking point of a human spirit. Isolation is a powerful weapon, and whether Sumit is using it consciously or not, it is working in his favor. Think about Jenny's daily life. Who does she talk to? Who are her friends in India? After all these years, does she have a support system outside of Sumit? The answer appears to be a resounding no. She is isolated by language, isolated by culture, and isolated by geography. Sumit is her translator. Sumit is her tour guide. Sumit is her only link to the outside world. If she wants to negotiate a price at the market, she needs Sumit. If she wants to understand a letter in the mail, she needs Sumit. This creates a terrifying power dynamic. He is the gatekeeper of her reality. When you are that dependent on someone, you stop holding them accountable because you are terrified they will walk away and leave you blind and deaf in a foreign land. This isolation breeds a specific kind of madness. It clouds judgment. It makes the abnormal feel normal. It makes selling a wedding ring to buy groceries feel like a romantic sacrifice rather than a desperate failure. She is sleeping with the enemy, but the enemy is the only one who speaks her language. And this brings us to the sunk cost fallacy. This is the psychological anchor that is dragging Jenny to the bottom of the ocean. Why doesn't she leave? Every comment section asks this. Run, Jenny, run. But she can't. The sunk cost fallacy dictates that because she has invested so much, 10 years of time, her entire 401k, her reputation, her relationship with her family, she cannot walk away. To walk away now would be to admit that the last decade was a waste. It would be to admit that the investment failed. So, instead of cutting her losses, she doubles down. She throws good money after bad. She thinks, if I just sell this ring, maybe things will turn around next month. If I just wait a little longer, the pension will stretch further. She is gambling with chips she doesn't have because the idea of folding the hand is too painful to bear. We have to explore the dark theory regarding this sunk cost. The theory is that Sumit isn't keeping Jenny. Jenny is buying Sumit's time. It's a transaction. A cynical, cold transaction. As long as the American dollars were flowing, Sumit was the doting, younger lover. He fought for her. He defied his parents for her. But watch the body language now that the money is tight. Watch the eyes. The adoration is fading. The patience is thinning. The theory suggests that Jenny knows this deep down. She knows that her value to him is tied to the dollar sign. And now that inflation has hit and the Social Security check isn't enough, she is terrified. She is selling the jewelry not just to eat, but to pay the subscription fee for her marriage. She is terrified that if the money stops completely, the love stops too. She is buying another month of his presence. She is buying another month of pretending that this is a fairy tale. And the price of that subscription just went up while her bank account went down. Let's go deeper into the psychology of Sumit. We have characterized him as a parasite, but let's analyze the mind of the host. What is it about Jenny that attracts this dynamic? There is a pattern here. We see a woman who desperately wants to be chosen. She wants a Bollywood romance. She wants to be the star of the movie. Sumit gave her that script. He gave her the lines. He told her she was beautiful, desirable, worth fighting for. That level of validation is addictive. It is a drug. And like any addict, Jenny is willing to bankrupt herself to get the next hit. Sumit is the dealer. He dispenses affection in small doses, just enough to keep her hooked, just enough to keep her believing that the breakthrough is around the corner. I will get a job soon, baby. The business will start next month, baby. These are the promises of a dealer keeping his client on the line. And Jenny, starry-eyed and destitute, nods her head and hands over the credit card. We must also consider the role of TLC in this psychological torture. The cameras are a buffer. As long as the crew is there, as long as they are filming, there is a sense of purpose. We are stars. We are famous. But what happens when the season wraps? What happens in the months of silence between filming? That is when the reality sets in. That is when the royal love hits the pavement. Rumors suggest that the fights during the off-season are explosive. Without the audience to perform for, the resentment bubbles to the surface. Sumit resents her for not having enough money to maintain their lifestyle. Jenny resents him for not stepping up. And yet, they stay together. They are two drowning people clinging to each other, dragging each other down. But Sumit has a life raft. He is young. He is in his home country. If this falls apart, he can go back to Sadhna. He can cry, apologize, get an arranged marriage, and restart his life. He has a plan B. Jenny is the one without a life jacket. She is the one treading water in the middle of the ocean. And the water is rising. This financial abuse, and let's call it what it is, financial abuse, is subtle. It's not him stealing her purse. It's him letting her empty it. It's passive. It's weaponized incompetence. By refusing to learn how to manage the finances, by refusing to understand the gravity of their situation, he forces her to bear the mental load. She has to be the accountant, the planner, the worrier. He gets to be the carefree boy. This ages her. Stress creates cortisol. Cortisol destroys the body. When we say Jenny looks frilier, it isn't just a lack of food. It is the crushing weight of carrying a 30-year-old man on her back for a decade. We have to ask, what is the end game here? Does Sumit have a threshold? Is there a specific number in his head, a balance of zero, where he finally pulls the plug? Or is the plan even darker? Is the plan to keep her there until she is completely insolvent and then use her destitution as an excuse to send her back? I can't take care of you, Jenny. You need American health care. You need to go home. It would be the perfect crime. He gets to play the martyr. He gets to say he let her go for her own good, while keeping the years of financial support she provided. He walks away with the iPhone, the clothes, the experiences, and she walks away with a suitcase full of regret. This is the nightmare scenario. And looking at the trajectory, looking at the frame-by-frame analysis of that jewelry store footage, it feels less like a theory and more like a prediction. The writing is on the wall, but Jenny is refusing to read it because reading it means the end of her world. The ring is gone. The gold necklace is next. And then what? We are looking at a timeline that is shrinking by the hour. We need to project this forward to its logical, terrifying conclusion. What happens in 30 days when there is nothing left to sell? What happens when the landlord knocks on the door and the excuse of waiting for a wire transfer doesn't work anymore? We are approaching the event horizon of this relationship. The point of no return where the gravity of their debt crushes the remaining air out of their fantasy. We have to talk about the repatriation nightmare. This is the scenario no one wants to discuss, but it is the reality facing thousands of expatriates who run out of money abroad. The United States government does not fly you home for free. There is no charity flight for bad decisions. If Jenny becomes truly destitute, if she ends up on the street because Sumit refuses to work, her only option is a repatriation loan. She will have to walk into the U.S. Embassy, admit her total failure, and sign a promissory note to the federal government to buy a plane ticket home. Think about the humiliation of that moment. After defying her family, after fighting the critics, after 10 years of claiming love conquers all, she would be returning to American soil not as a wife, but as a debtor to her own country. Her passport would be limited. Her credit would be destroyed. She would land at LAX with nothing but the clothes on her back and a debt she cannot pay. And the tragic part? Sumit would likely not be on that plane. Without a visa and without Jenny's sponsorship money, he stays behind. And this leads us to the most infuriating realization of all. Sumit wins either way. This is the genius of his parasitism. If Jenny stays and scrapes by, he gets a companion and a modest income. If Jenny goes bankrupt and is forced to leave, he gets his freedom. He gets to be the 90-day Fiancé star in India. He can leverage his Instagram following, which was built on Jenny's back, to launch a career as an influencer. We are already seeing the signs. The modeling photos, the brand deals he attempts to snag. He is setting up his life after Jenny. He is building a lifeboat while she is busy patching the holes in the sinking ship. He will go back to his parents' house. Sadhna will welcome him back with open arms, validated in her belief that the American woman was never the right choice. He will be the prodigal son who returned. He will have a roof over his head, food on his table, and his mother's care. He loses nothing. Jenny loses everything. She loses her retirement, her dignity, her home, and the last decade of her life. The asymmetry of this risk is nauseating. He gambled with her chips, and when the house wins, he walks away while she gets thrown out. We need to address the medical time bomb one last time because the silence on this topic from their camp is deafening. At Jenny's age, health is the primary asset. In the US, she has Medicare. She has a safety net. In India, without premium private insurance, the healthcare system can be brutal for those without cash on hand. If she suffers a fall, a heart issue, or any common ailment, they will demand cash up front before treatment. Does Sumit have a secret stash for this? Does he have a rainy day fund? Based on the fact that he let her sell her engagement ring for grocery money, the answer is a terrifying no. He is playing Russian roulette with her life. This brings us to the ultimate question we must ask ourselves as viewers and as witnesses to this slow-motion car crash. Is Sumit waiting for the collapse? Is there a darker plan at play? Some theorists suggest that he is passively waiting for her to run out of money, so he doesn't have to be the one to break up with her. If she leaves because of poverty, he isn't the bad guy. He's just a victim of circumstance. We ran out of money, baby. You have to go. It absolves him of guilt. It allows him to play the heartbroken victim on social media, crying crocodile tears for the cameras while secretly breathing a sigh of relief that the burden is gone. He effectively outsources the breakup to the economy. He lets inflation and poverty do the dirty work that he is too cowardly to do himself. It is the ultimate act of passive-aggressive manipulation. He watches the bank account drain like an hourglass, waiting for the last grain of sand to fall so he can finally start his real life with a younger Indian woman that his mother approves of. So where does this leave us? It leaves us with a responsibility. We are not just watching a TV show anymore. We are watching a documented case of financial exploitation. The comments section on their social media is filled with people screaming for her to wake up. But she isn't reading them. Or if she is ignoring them to protect her fragile reality. We need to get this message to the people who matter. We need to get this message to Jenny's family. Look at the evidence we have compiled. Look at the trembling hands in the jewelry store. Look at the contrast between the new iPhone and the empty fridge. Look at the fear in her eyes that she tries to mask with a smile. This is not love. This is survival. And she is losing the fight. If you believe that Sumit is financially abusing Jenny, if you believe that he is knowingly draining her dry to fund a lifestyle he refuses to work for, you need to make some noise. Hit the like button on this video not for the algorithm, but to signal that you see the truth. Share this video on Facebook, on Twitter, on Reddit groups. Tag TLC. Tag the producers. Make it impossible for them to spin this as a romantic struggle. This isn't a struggle, it's a scam. We need to ask, does Jenny need a rescue mission? Is it time for a GoFundMe not to support their life in India, but to buy her a one-way ticket out of there? If her daughters are watching, we want you to know, the fans see it. We see what is happening. We support you. We know that you have likely tried to intervene, and we know how hard it is to deprogram someone who is deep in the sunk cost fallacy. But don't give up. The footage from that jewelry store is the smoking gun you need to convince her that the dream is dead. And to Sumit, if you are watching this, and we know you watch everything that is said about you, the world is watching. We see the phone. We see laziness. We see the entitlement. The Michael Jones mask has slipped completely. You are not a victim of your parents. You are a victim of your own refusal to be a man. You have taken a woman who gave you everything and reduced her to a beggar in a pawn shop. Shame on you. This story isn't over. The next few months are critical. Will we see the sale of the gold necklace? Will we see a medical emergency fundraiser? Or will we see the inevitable post? Jenny is heading back to America. We will be watching. We will be analyzing every frame, every post, every lie. We will not let the narrative be rewritten. If you want to stay ahead of the spin, if you want the unvarnished truth about the 90-Day Fiancé cast that the network tries to hide, you know what to do. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notifications. We are digging deeper into the financial records of other cast members as we speak. This investigation is just the beginning. Jenny, if you can hear us, go home. The ring is gone. Don't let your soul be next. Pack the bag, take the loss, and get on that plane before you are stuck there forever. For everyone else, thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Let's keep the pressure on. Let's expose the truth before it's too late. I'll see you in the next investigation.